All right, folks, here we go. This is 6-6 to 6-8. That's what we're doing here. So first of all, you've already learned what makes up a bone. You already learned the two types of ossification models, the endochondral and the intramembranous ossification. You already know approximately what age that happens. You know that you're born with all of your endochondral ossifications done at least at the primary ossification center. Some of the secondary ossification centers might not be done yet. They'll be done shortly after you're born. You know that the intramembranous ossifications are done by the time you're born. You know the difference between the two ossifications. By the way, when I say that the intramembranous ossifications are done, that doesn't mean that your flat bones of your skull have completely grown together, though. Remember, you have those sutures, and when you're born, a baby has those soft spots in their head. That's simply the areas where the sutures haven't completely fused yet. And we call them fontanelles. That's what those soft spots are. And the anterior fontanelle is the biggest one. But there are other fontanelles as well. All right, so now you know all of that. Now let's talk about what happens to an adult bone after it's formed in there. All right, so the big thing I want you to take away from this lecture is bone is continuously remodeling and changing and highly metabolic. Because a lot of people don't think bones are metabolic, but they are. They're very metabolic. And if you look at this, it shows you that I'm trying to see what the dotted red line is. The bone that's going to be, or the bone that was just resorbed. Yeah, right there. The bone used to look like this dotted line. All right, this dotted line. And then it says, yeah, that's why you can see number one, bone is resorbed here. And then we reabsorbed all of this bone right here. And then we built it up right here. And we did some appositional growth right there. So in other words, we changed the shape of the bone. We modified the shape of the bone slightly. Now, why would we do this? It all has to do with the stresses put on the bone. Your bones respond to stress, and we're going to talk about how and why. But your bones respond to stress, and they will make themselves stronger in areas that are getting a lot of stress, and they will sacrifice calcium from an area that is not getting as much stress. So bones are always remodeling, changing based on stress. So if you change a sport, your bones are going to start remodeling. You know, if you're playing soccer your whole life, your bones are pretty much remodeled for that kind of sport. But then if you start swimming, your muscles are going to be pulling on your bones in a different way, and you will likely remodel your bones for that new stress. So we're always remodeling bone. Just remember what bone is. It's 2/3 inorganic or minerals, 2/3 minerals, and it's 1/3 collagen or organic. By the way, there's some other proteins in there too. I'm just picking the main one. So 1/3 collagen, or what we say organic, because there are some other proteins in there. And then 2/3 inorganic, calcium apatite. Yeah, I can't spell. Wow. Calcium apatite. Let me try that one again. So the mineral portion is hydroxyapatite or calcium appetite. And remember, it's not hungry type of appetite. It's spelled A-P-A-T-I-T-E. And you can see that the composition of bone, it's 39% calcium. You got some other minerals in there. You can see them all there. Those are some other minerals. Now look at the organic part. As you can imagine, 1/3 is 33%. There it is. So of all of these inorganics, that's 2/3. And then 1/3 is this collagen. All right. So remember that. Now, how do we control this calcium? By the way, let's go back. Phosphate usually is associated with calcium. Usually, you have calcium phosphate is what you usually have. This is what you usually have. Oh boy, you're probably going to want me to balance that. Phosphate has 3 negative charges. Calcium has 2 positive charges. Let me write that balance for you. So that's going to be calcium 3, phosphate 2. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 2 is 6. That's balanced. So a lot of the inorganics are calcium phosphate. And if you look at 39 and 17, that's 56, I believe. Yeah, I think that's 56%. So 56% of your bone is calcium phosphate. Now remember, Only 66% of your bone, or 66.6666% of your bone, is inorganic to begin with, and 56% of that, of the 66, is calcium phosphate. So there's only 10% left. So what's the other 10%? Potassium, sodium, magnesium, carbonate, things like that. So most of your inorganic bone is calcium phosphate, that calcium apatite we talked about. So what's very important is what we do with our calcium. And this is the calcium homeostasis. So here's your happy. You're happy right here. 9 to 11 milligrams per deciliter of calcium. 100 milliliters is a deciliter, by the way, so I didn't say that wrong. 9 to 11 milligrams per deciliter. Pretty narrow, isn't it? We keep our calcium pretty darn narrow. Let's say calcium goes up. I've disturbed homeostatic balance. My calcium's up. No problem. I have these C cells in my thyroid gland. They're called C cells because they make calcitonin. Some people call them parafollicular cells. C cells make calcitonin. And my C cells in my thyroid gland detect that I have high calcium, and they secrete calcitonin, high calcitonin. Calcitonin goes to my bones, and it turns on osteoblasts. Well, how does that lower blood calcium? Osteoblasts take calcium out of the blood and put it into the bone. That lowers blood calcium. And you already know that osteoblasts build bone. Where do they get the calcium from? The blood. So if my calcium goes too high, my calcitonin turns on osteoblasts. On the flip side of that, if my calcium goes too low, I have these little glands on the back of my thyroid gland. They're called parathyroid glands, these four little brown nodules. If the calcium goes too low, my parathyroid glands sense this, and they secrete parathyroid hormone, PTH. PTH turns on osteoclasts, which digest bone and give calcium back to the blood. This is how I keep my calcium in homeostasis. And I need my calcium to be in homeostasis or my heart quits working. My heart will quit working with high calcium and low calcium. So I have to keep my calcium in homeostasis, or I have cardiovascular manifestations of not doing that. There's implications to not keeping my calcium normal. Some other parts of this story, some of you heard of. So we already said PTH, parathyroid gland secretes PTH. We already said PTH turns on osteoclasts. We already said that. What else does it do? Well, PTH goes to my intestines and says, hey, reabsorb calcium more. And it does it directly and indirectly. How does it do it indirectly? PTH turns on an enzyme in the kidney called 1-alpha hydroxylase. Now, I'm going to take you back to the skin chapter. Remember, in my skin, not skine, skin, in my skin, I have cholecalciferol. And sunlight hits my skin, and I make cholecalciferol. And then what happens is that goes to the liver and becomes 25-hydroxycholecalciferol. And then what happens is that goes to the kidneys, and it becomes calcitriol. And what calcitriol is 1-alpha 25-dihydroxycholecalciferol, or calcitriol. That's the active form of vitamin D. Now what that does is that calcitriol goes to the intestines and says reabsorb more calcium. It also turns right back around on itself to the kidneys, in other words, and says don't urinate out calcium. So I'm keeping calcium in my body both with PTH and with vitamin D. That's pretty important right there. All right. This is the other way. I have high calcium. I'm going to release calcitonin. I'm going to turn on osteoblasts. I turn off osteoclasts, by the way. I turn them off. I turn on osteoblasts, and I put the calcium into my bone. Take it out of my blood and put it into my bone. I quit absorbing calcium from my intestine because it's already too high, and I start urinating out calcium in my urine. My kidneys get rid of it because it's too high. So calcitonin does this for me, whereas parathyroid raises blood calcium, calcitonin lowers blood calcium. And this is the same picture, same story, different picture. Same story, different picture. And you can work your way through all of that. All right. That's calcium homeostasis in a nutshell. And if your calcium is too low, your heart stops beating. And if your calcium is too high, your heart stops beating. All right. This could be on the test, but it's not in your book. But I'm going to explain it. What we have here is, you can see these osteoblasts right here. These are osteoblasts. This big pink thing is an osteoclast. This is an osteoclast. All right. What I have here is I have a thing called rank and rank L. Rank stands for receptor activator of nuclear kappa. Receptor activator of nuclear kappa. And it's actually kappa B, but I just is doing the RANK for you. Receptor activator of nuclear kappa. All right. It's a factor. Well, what binds that? Rank L. Rank ligand. Rank L binds rank. Rank L binds rank. Okay? Now, here's what happens. What happens is I make these osteoprotogerin decoy receptors. They're called OPGs. And let me see what the OPG is. OPG is Blue Pac-Man. So what happens is I make these decoy receptors. And what do the decoy receptors do? They bind rank L. Here's a rank L to OPG right there. Here's another rank L to OPG. Well, who cares? Well, if rank L can't bind rank, I can never activate osteoclast. So see, here's an activated osteoclast. This is rank and rank L bound together. That's my activated osteoclast. That's what it is. But it only can activate the osteoclast if rank binds rank L. So what does OPG do? It keeps rank L from binding rank, and I never activate my osteoclast. That's what it does. So I know how I activate my osteoclast. I know how that works. Okay. So rank L leads to osteoclastogenesis, making osteoclast. Therefore, rank to rank L increases osteolysis. Whereas increasing OPG decreases osteoclastogenesis. Right here. OPG to rank L decreases osteoclastogenesis. So who cares? Who cares about all this? PTH leads to increase of rank L. And a decrease of OPG. Now let's go back to it. PTH, whoops, I'm very sorry. PTH better make me break down bone. I told you before, PTH is going to cause bone resorption, bone breakdown. So PTH better turn on a whole bunch of these osteoclasts right here. Okay, first of all, it increases rank L. So I'm increasing this yellow thing. PTH makes me increase this yellow thing. That's good, because even if I have some OPGs floating around, if I had one OPG and a million rank L's are going to out-compete for the rank. So now I got a lot of these rank ligands, and they start binding right here onto the rank. And when they do, they activate my osteoclast, and I turn on bone resorption. So that's how it really works. That's how PTH really works, is it turns on rank L. And we know this. And we make antibodies. In other words, what this is showing you right here is we have pharmaceutical companies making this antibody right here, which is really like OPG. That's really what it is. So let's say maybe you don't have enough OPG in your body. Well, we can give you a medicine called denosumab, and that can act like OPG. And it can bind rank L. It can act like the decoy receptor, and it can keep you from activating osteoclasts and therefore fight osteoporosis. That's what it can do. So we have a drug that fights osteoporosis by acting like OPG. All right. Last section coming up.